One of the biggest things we learned during the pilot scheme was the amount of support that's required for those who are homeless, vulnerable, transitioning from chaotic lifestyles, suffering with health conditions, mental health conditions potentially, experiencing poverty or poverty-related issues. We learned that one of the biggest things that is essential to social property investment projects is the support element, and it is not kind at all to place potentially troubled individuals into property and not give them the support to rehabilitate, and then to expect them to still meet all of their responsibilities which are involved with that tenancy when they just perhaps don't have the skill or the knowledge or the resources to be able to do that. So what we found was, when I did the pilot scheme, we put some of our tenants we gave support to. Some of our tenants we accessed external support for, so beg, borrow and steal support from other agencies and asked them, if we can house your tenants for you, can you please support our tenants as they're housed and help them to stay in the properties? And some of our tenants weren't supported at all. And with the unsupported tenants, still have some regrets from that period, and some people that I wish I'd been able to work with more. It was very difficult because it was unpaid and unfunded as a social entrepreneur at that time. So I was really working around the clock and trying to do everything myself. So I wasn't able to support everybody as I wanted to. And some of the people that we didn't support, we had a complete failure with. They ran off with rent arrears and they caused damage to property. They didn't engage with us. We were constantly trying to ring them and their phone had been cut off, or they didn't answer to us, or they wouldn't answer the door to us. We were left with some substantial rent arrears from those types of tenants, and it was a real headache. And with those types of tenants that didn't get supported, it was really challenging, and it made me understand why social landlords didn't exist at this point. It made me understand why the buy-to-let sector was sometimes so frustrated with working with tenants claiming benefits. It was hard work, and it wasn't profitable work. It wasn't work that you were being paid for or remunerated for. You could spend hours and hours and hours chasing things for nothing, and it was very frustrating. And so that's why I harp on all the time about getting adequate support and connecting with agencies who can give you and your tenants support, and also give you specialised support. As a landlord, as an investor, as a property managing agent, you're probably not a social worker or qualified as you may need to be to encounter some of these really challenging issues that you may encounter. So unsupported tenants is, for me, it's not a way that I would want to work in the future, and it's not a way I recommend to work. Our fully supported tenants, on the other hand, had some great results with them. And we had some really high levels of engagement with our fully supported tenants, and they kept their appointments, and they kept speaking to us, and they kept up all of the requirements of their tenancies. We managed to collect their rent without much problem. We had sustainability really improved with supported tenants, and some of those tenants now, I know I'm still in touch with a few of them that have gone on and got married, have gone and moved and living abroad, have gone on to set businesses up. So those tenants did really well, and our landlord satisfaction level was really high with those tenants too. Because obviously everybody was happy, the landlord was getting paid, and he knew his tenant was happy and not causing any problems within the household. Everybody had a really good level of communication and way of working together in a collaborative fashion, and it made for a really successful investment and a really financially viable investment too. So that really is made possible, and I've touched on it so many times already, but it's made possible by intersector working, and that is working with other organisations who can give your tenants and you the support that you need if you are hosting a social property investment project. So I like to make friends with other organisations and partners, and it's really easy to create value between each party when you're coming to work with partners. And in the pilot scheme, we work with lots of different supporting agencies and partners. And you can see here one of the charitable organisations that we've helped to house some tenants for. And they've gone on and in return, they've given these tenants some support, and we've helped to set that project up. And then we've left the landlord and the charitable partner to work together and let that relationship develop and evolve. So some of our tenants that we've worked with, we've had some fantastic success with, and I'm going to be following some case studies over the rest of the introduction guide, and we're going to be working with looking at some of the case studies of the tenants that I work with during the pilot scheme, and we'll follow their stories and how we enabled them to access housing and how we supported them to keep their housing as we go through the rest of the training. So I want to give you the verdict on the pilot scheme now. And for us, what was so crucial within the pilot scheme, I tried to sum it up into something that would be easy to remember. Strategies, systems, support will create sustainable housing solutions. So we need to put strategies in place. So we need to have an understanding of what we're trying to achieve here. We can't just throw a load of people into property and expect it to work really well and everybody to get paid and the tenants to be really well behaved. It's just not going to work out like that unless we know we have a clear idea of what we're working towards and how we're going to try and achieve it. And we've got a strategy of what we're hoping to achieve, both on a business sense, but also on a social sense too. So we need to strategize and we need to really think about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Systems come into play and we found this out via I worked previously within the local government for about 7 or 8 years, and we always had a procedure for everything. So I didn't really know any different than working with procedures. So if I needed to empty the bin, not that I needed it, there would be a procedure in a file on the shelf that would tell me exactly the system for dealing with waste disposal. If I visited a property and I thought that there may be some child abuse or child neglect issue that I needed to raise and I didn't know how to deal with that, I would go to the shelf in my office and I would look and I would see the procedure of how to move forward step by step. So when I first set up People's Property Shop, I was looking at working with the LHA strategy, which is the traditional name for working with benefit claiming tenants in the private rented sector. And I started having a look around for this LHA strategy and I couldn't find it. And I thought, eventually it dawned on me that the LHA strategy was merely just a word for a terminology for working with tenants who were claiming benefits. It didn't mean there was a strategy or any strategic thought behind it. It just meant that you were open to working that way, and that was the way that you pursued a pursuit of you in the private rented sector, and that was the targeted area that you were working towards. So I was really surprised after working, as I say, with such with always having instruction and guidance and tools to be able to assist me as I navigated my way through this complex sector that I work within. When I transferred this over to the private rented sector, it wasn't in existence. So I had to create some systems and systemized ways of working which would work for the private rented sector. And I did this by adapting some of the techniques that I'd been taught and some of the ways of working that I'd utilised within the local government role that I'd held previously. And that's how we created systemised ways of working. And I implement systems across all different areas of working in a social property investment project, from sourcing buildings, sourcing tenants, screening tenants, benefits, rents and payments, collaborative management. Everything has a method behind it, and a kind of instruction guide, and a template of how we're going to do things. And if something goes wrong, we're going to try and rewrite it, and we're going to edit it, and we're going to improve it. It's a working document, and you're always going to be enhancing it. But systems are really, really essential. And I've already covered before talking about support element. Strategies, systems, and support. Combine them, and that's what's going to make success in the social property investment marketplace. So some of the further enhancement bits of learning that we learned were when we combine these systems with these strategies. So if we have a template of how we're going to work and what we're hoping to achieve, both in business and social, in a social sense, then if we can combine that with systemized way of working, and we can put some structure behind how we're going to achieve our goals, then we get the support that we need added in, and we access all of the resources that we need via these supporting partners. Then we can build a successful social property investment model. Strategies, systems, support. And remember, social property investment is aiming to maximize profit and cost effectiveness, mitigate and minimize the risk, and ultimately make a difference to the lives of people housed. So you've seen some of our successes already, and as I've mentioned previously, we're going to stay with some of these tenants that you can see on my screen, and we're going to work with them through the whole introductory course and see exactly what strategies and systems did we put into place to achieve success with these tenants, and when we didn't put the strategies and systems in place, what went wrong. So as I say, I think that's the best way for you to learn from here on in for the rest of the introductory course, is for you to be able to have a look at some real case studies of both property and people, and I'll show you how we've achieved both success and failures within this marketplace, and hopefully you'll be able to take lots away to learn and make your own projects really successful. So stay with us for the next part of the course, which is going to be all about America and our research project there. So thanks for watching the first part of the pilot scheme, and I will see you next part for the America and international research. Thanks.